so nice to be here and speak for you guys. It was a year ago, about, that I left with Sky, who is army crawling across the sand. Sky. Sit. Stay. Do you want to talk? Anyway, I had something to say, but who knows when we'll get there. So I was born and raised in upstate New York, in a small town where there was no other blind or visually impaired people around me. Not a single one. The only one who was blind or visually impaired to have ever gone to my very small school. And from a very young age, I knew that it was going to be very hard to fit in. But I had a lot of hope as a child, and I found my refuge in performing on stage, like I am for you now. And through performing, I had a new hope. I was fearless. I was ready to do anything. So, when I graduated high school, I was ready to go off to New York City and study musical theater in college and be a Broadway star, because I could do absolutely anything, and that's what I always believed. But life had other plans, because navigating New York City when you're sighted isn't exactly easy. And then doing it without sight is a whole different challenge entirely. Suddenly, simple things like walking out my door or finding my class building were terrifying, and I didn't want to do it. And how could I be a Broadway star if I was too scared to do something as simple as walk outside? I knew that I needed help, but I didn't know what that was. Every 5 minutes. So I started doing research and looking into guide dog schools. I had always wanted one. I even went to conferences for some smaller schools in New York when I was little, but I had never had the mobility training, or white cane training as some people call it, to be clear, because I lived in a very small town where visually impaired resources were very, very limited, and it was hard to keep an instructor. But in New York, my wonderful instructor was able to help me finish, and so then I was able to start applying to schools. And it was like it was fate, because there was one day that my mother, who works in a tiny little motel in upstate New York, which is very far from where we are, had a customer walk in whose husband had a guide dog from Dogs Inc. And she really hyped up this school. She told my mom it was amazing, that it was the best, and that we should really look into it. So that night, I spent all night, maybe till 3 a.m., researching the website, and then I applied. And I had texted my mother at 3 a.m. that I had applied. She did not respond to me that night because she was sleeping. But she responded to me in the morning, and she said that she was very excited to see what this had in store, because she believes in signs, and now so do I, because, well, I'm standing in front of you. But I'd like to say that my road to getting Sky was easy, and that once I applied, all my dreams were coming true, and I didn't have that fear anymore. But I cannot say that's the case. I ended up leaving school only a couple months after I applied through Dogs Inc. because I had a surgery that changed a lot of my vision. And I honestly didn't believe I could ever go back. I thought that my time on a stage was done, and that was soul-crushing. I didn't know what to do anymore. And I honestly didn't think getting a guide dog was even worth it, because if I didn't feel safe to go on a stage, then what was I supposed to do? But then the day came, and I came here, and I was matched with Sky. And she changed everything. I had a new freedom, a new purpose that I didn't know was possible for someone like me. I never got to just walk down the street and be able to focus on things like the smell of the air or the sound of the water. I was always too focused on where I was going, or not tripping over anything, or not running into an obstacle. Just walking down the street and getting to think wasn't something I got to do before. And I remember finishing that first walk with Sky and going into my dorm room here and calling my mother and crying. And she asked me what was wrong. And I told her that I was confused because I had never felt something like that before. And after getting Sky, my entire world changed. There was downsides. I had another surgery, and my vision looks a lot different than it used to because of it. But with her by my side, I was easily able to get through it. And she gave me the courage to keep going. I started to want to perform again, and eventually, the two of us went back to New York City, and I went to my first Broadway audition. And then, as if that wasn't the end of the story, I ended up coming back and speaking for some events. And now I work here, and I get to spend every day knowing that I get to help people the way that Sky helped me. And I just want to say an amazing thank you to all of our puppy raisers, the unconditional love that you give to our dogs, and the work that you put in is incredible. There are not many souls like you who can do that, trust me. I run into a lot of people who love dogs, but how many can actually say that they can do the work that you do? So you're incredible. Thank you so much.